Hi, I'm John Mallos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this Wednesday morning. Glad you're here. A lot to talk about in terms of the Armenian genocide. And today we're talking reconciliation, believe it or not. You like that word? Reconciliation. Hard to believe for some, but we're going to talk about it here on the program today. Got two guests here in the studio talking about a movement. All right, 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in just a moment.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
Back here on the program on a Wednesday morning. Glad you're here on the showroom floor at Ventura TV. I'm excited about this program today because we're talking about a very hot topic, very controversial topic. Not everybody is going to accept this topic or this program today. I'm talking about the content of this program, reconciliation. We'll get into that in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about tomorrow's program. And Skip Essick is going to be here. He's part owner, or maybe he's the sole owner of that 1680 AM radio station here in the city of Fresno. He wants to talk about the homeless issue, which is a major problem, and all of the gang violence and all of the shootings that have taken place here in the city of Fresno recently, including one right here in southeast Fresno, where 3 people were left dead yesterday. So the shootings continue. What is the city of Fresno going to do about it? Add more cops. That's going to cost money. Many people believe we need to get up to 1,000 officers to try to control crime in this city. But you know how much money that's going to cost? Do the math, my friends. That's right. Follow the money. On Friday, then, we're going to have another special program. An attorney is going to be in the building on Friday to talk about the Keith Foster case. And a very interesting twist has taken place in the Foster case. He's fired his attorney. He's got a new attorney. He wants another trial. Because he says that he didn't receive a fair trial with his attorney, didn't get the proper representation. So we'll talk to Peter Capitan about that on Friday. And there's a possibility that Foster could go to jail for up to 25 years. That would be federal prison. So we'll talk about that later in the week. In the meantime, you're watching us live on Comcast, channel 375 as usual. It is Comcast Cable TV, a talk show program here, a talk show, that's right, 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning, every Monday through Friday, live, 436-ME-TV, option 11, 13.1, 43.6 over-the-air broadcast with one of those digital television antennas. They're hanging from the ceiling right here at Ventura TV. Later in the day, my friends, you can catch the replay at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 13.6 YouTube, 8 o'clock tonight, 4.6 Biz TV, and after that, you can catch everything else on YouTube. Right now, as I speak, there is something absolutely astonishing going on, and I'm talking about reconciliation between the Armenians and the Turks. I know that you're finding this hard to believe as many times as we have talked about this topic on this program, but right now, there is a movement going on. It all started here in Fresno. I'm talking about a movement that's taking place all across the globe. Here in the United States of America, overseas in Armenia, also in the country of Turkey, believe it or not. All right, let's roll the videotape, show you what I'm talking about in terms of today's program. Of course, for some people, it's even harder to accept. Forget about believing it. How about accepting it? Many Turks, many Armenians are going to reject the idea that there is going to be reconciliation. And it's easy to see why, because more than 1.5 million Armenians were slaughtered like animals during the Armenian genocide that began in 1915. To this day, the Turkish government refuses to acknowledge that it ever happened. Not even our own government recognizes it. In fact, some Christian Turks are constantly receiving death threats for apologizing to some of the Armenians. Well, that's what this movement is all about, my friends. This historic event all began some 3 years ago when 7 Christian Turkish pastors arrived in this country and met with several Armenian pastors, all sponsored by the Mennonite Brethren Church. 3 of those Turkish pastors came to Fresno and spoke at the evangelical church. No one knew what to say at the time. No one knew how this whole thing was going to turn out. The Turks asked for forgiveness for what their forefathers had done to the Armenians during the genocide. In return, forgiveness was extended back to the Armenians, to the Turks. And in fact, one Armenian priest blessed and prayed for those Turkish pastors. There is more, my friends. Later in the day, those same Turkish pastors shared an Armenian-Turkish meal with some 80 Armenian members of the evangelical church. A 2-day conference in Pasadena followed. They worshiped together, they sang, they had Bible study, they had discussions, there was talk of forgiveness, there was talk of reconciliation. Thus a remarkable movement was born, the journey to reconciliation, and it continues to this day.
I want to go. I want to pray blessing, forgive him. Bless his family, bless his descendants, to end the curse, to follow in the steps of Jesus.
Heaven invaded earth today. I mean, I do believe that God is going back into history and changing the past.
Yeah, I know this is hard to believe that it's unfolding right before our eyes. Live in our studio right now, Dr. Jacob Kushijian and Sam Saji Umen, a man who is of Eastern Indian descent and is the peacemaker and coordinator for this movement. He began it all, and a lot of it started right here in the city of Fresno, as a matter of fact. Moved to Pasadena, then LA, then New Jersey, then over to Turkey, and eventually it moved to the monument, the genocide monument that sits, of course, in the country of Armenia. You're welcome to call in, 436-ME-TV, option 11. Is there such a thing as reconciliation between the Turks and the Armenians? Will it ever happen? Is it happening now? Will there be acceptance by the Turks and the Armenians? I don't know. Answers to all these questions are not easy, my friends. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in just a moment.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, will help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
The Justice Network is here. If you haven't tuned in, you're missing a great lineup of gripping stories of real crime, plus an unprecedented effort by viewers like you to play an active role in making your community safer. You can help support law enforcement by providing information that may lead to the apprehension of dangerous criminals or find a missing child. Great shows and your chance to fight crime, only on the Justice Network.
Mesih uğruna birçok acılar çektim. Sizin çektiğiniz acıların yanında bunların hiçbir anlamı yok. Tabii 1915 olaylarıyla ilgili hassasiyetinizin farkındayım. Bizim ülkemizde bunun üstü örtülmeye çalışılıyor. Biliyorum birçok Türk vatandaşı bunu reddediyor. 1,5 milyon Ermeni, o topraklarda yaşayan kardeşimiz öldürüldü. Ve benim atalarım bu suçu işledi, bunu kabul ediyorum. Yüreğimi açıyorum ve İsa'nın adıyla diyorum ki, lütfen bizi bağışlayın.
We've had other guests with us who have been instrumental in the last couple of days, and tomorrow we continue our meetings. One of whom is Haik Shishmanian, and Haik's standing back there.
As a follower of Christ, I couldn't honestly face my relationship with God without confronting my call to love my enemies. God began to stir in me the idea and the vision of seeing Armenians return and just release blessing. And I'm excited at the possibilities and the prospects of what God will do in the lives of those we visit. Nothing may happen, something may happen, something very big may happen. I don't know, God knows. But what I do know is that God transformed my life during the time in Turkey, and I envision and encourage Armenians to pursue visiting as well.
Okay, so we're talking about reconciliation, but this not only applies to the Armenian genocide, but this applies generally speaking in life. Reconciliation and forgiveness for anyone who may have betrayed you or your family or your friends. So it kind of, it's a broad scope across the spectrum, my friends. But in this particular case, it is most difficult since the Armenian genocide started in 1915. Many believe it actually started before then and lasted for years beyond 1920 into the early 1920s. And so, 1.5 million, maybe even more, were slaughtered along with the Greeks and the Assyrians there in the Ottoman Empire. And the Turkish government to this day does not recognize that it even happened. This government doesn't recognize it because Turkey is such a big ally for the United States. We have army and military bases over there, and of course Turkey is supposed to be an ally in the war on terror against ISIS and all these other terror groups. So anyway, we are here, of course, with Jacob Kushijian. He's a doctor. He's an emergency room doctor. He is of Armenian descent. And Sam Saji Umen, he's the peacemaker of Eastern Indian descent. Welcome to you both here to the program today. So the video that we saw here, any one of you could pick it up. It doesn't matter. The video that we just came out of with the interview, explain what that video was and who was in it.
Yeah, we had we were able to bring a number of Armenians to Istanbul for a gathering. We had about 40 Turkish pastors and leaders, along with 40 Armenians from the diaspora, US, Canada, Lebanon, other places like that, as well as Armenia. And it was probably one of the first times that a large group like this had come together on Turkish soil to talk about reconciliation and forgiveness. And after that trip, a number of them went out, a number of the Armenians went out to visit their former homelands. And what you saw was one of the Canadian Armenians going to the graveyard of the general who ordered his village, his community, to be killed.
Yeah, slaughtered, basically slaughtered.
And so he was able to forgive that general. And
he forgave him.
That's what you saw.
You're talking about an Armenian now.
I'm talking about an Armenian from Canada.
A priest, a pastor?
A pastor, yeah, who knelt down at the grave of that Armenian, that Turkish general, and wept over it.
Prayed for his soul?
And prayed and forgave him and his family for what they had done.
How does that happen? You're Armenian. How does that happen?
How does somebody come to a point where they want to forgive the people that...
How do you go to a general's grave that slaughtered your own family members and pray for him and his soul?
Well, it only happens because you have a relation with Christ, that you understand the purpose of being a Christian and following what our God taught us to do. That's the only way it happens, to be quite honest. I mean, the only natural human response to people doing something terrible to you or your people would be to hate and revenge. That is a dead-end road in life.
Okay, there's a big difference if you're talking about, I mean, the difference between the meaning of the two words. Justice means one thing, means you do something to me, I want justice. I want revenge. That's kind of what that means. Okay, but reconciliation means something else. So what the Turks and the Armenians are talking about is not justice, right? It's not justice?
Well, it could be in some people's eyes, but let's back up. First of all, we got to define what reconciliation means. So the most simple word that people understand, or understanding of reconciliation, is to restore something back to its proper position. So when you reconcile your checkbook, you go through it, you go through all the things you spent, the money got inputted, and at the end of the event, you reconcile your checkbook back to its proper place so you know exactly how much money you have, how much you spent, and you're not overdrawn or underdrawn. In life, relationships are broken, tremendously broken. And the question is, do we want to restore them back to their proper place where we can be at peace with one another? That's what we're about. Peace comes when you reconcile, and it's a work. And it's not easy work, and not everybody wants to be part of it.
Saji, when you're talking reconciliation, can you inch in the word or squeak in the word justice in there?
Yeah, I think we want to talk about two concepts. There's conflict resolution and there's conflict transformation, encompassed in this idea of reconciliation. One, we want to, there's a misnomer that we can try to resolve conflicts very easily. And with the Armenian genocide, there's no easy way to resolve this conflict, right? John Paul Lederach, who's a professor at Notre Dame University, talks about conflict transformation, where sometimes it's going to get better before it gets worse. But that in the context of forming relationships, what Jay talked about, when reconciliation happens between two groups, then there's an opportunity to seek justice. A professor was just telling me yesterday that the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, the people who started that, the ones in South Africa, and that concept that spread all around the world, that happened, the most effective Truth and Reconciliation Commissions happened in the context of friendship, of relationship between one party and the other party. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately we do want to see justice. We do want to see something come out of
justice? Justice means if you murder someone, you go to death row or you go to prison for the rest of your life. What's justice in this case?
That's a great question, John. I wish there was an easy answer to that.
Do the Armenians who are involved in this, I'm talking about the pastors, do they want justice?
Sure.
In what way? What form? Is it reparations? What would it be?
Well, see, that's jumping to the end of the line, and it's impossible to even know what that could look like. Okay. On some level. There are some people that say, yes, we want the lands back, we want this, we want to be paid for every hour we were gone from the land. I mean, it goes on and on. And yet, how many people are willing to move back after they've been gone for 100 years? There's some, probably. But more importantly, I think it's not about me and what I want. It's what's best for the health of the Turk. And I'm going to say this may sound odd. What's best for the health of the Turk is that they live in shame and guilt over the atrocities that were committed, and even the Kurds in the regions of Eastern Anatolia, are asking for forgiveness. They're asking Armenians to go visit them. How do we get forgiveness for the evil we committed?
Caller, go ahead. You're on the air. Speak up loudly so we can hear you. Go ahead. You're on with our two guests.
I'd like to ask both your guests about justice, and I'm thinking about what ISIS is doing, giving up their lives to kill others, and not even think about the justice. And how are they able to say to themselves, "I did it for my God"? Well, we know better, okay? We have to forgive a lot of things, especially ISIS that's in the war, really just to go out and do destructive to UK or other nations, just like in Armenia, with how many were killed and whatnot. But how would you both of you, would justify the justice, what they're doing with what you've done as far as forgiveness? That's my question to both of you. Maybe, I hope you understand, but it's pretty hard to understand, It's not about forgiveness, because we have to forgive in order for us to be right with God. That's my belief.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just leave the question to you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. He's apparently going to take the answer off the air, so go ahead. Respond to that question, because that's really the crux of the matter. It's the most complicated issue. How do you reconcile and at the same time have justice be served and both parties be happy? Do you want the Turks to suffer for the rest of their lives? The Turks that are alive today had nothing to do with the genocide way back in 1915.
Sure. Well, first of all, again, justice is kind of like the end of the line result. Do we want the Turks to suffer? No, but they are suffering for the acts of their forefathers. And there's the tremendous shame on the land, tremendous guilt. They live with that. They don't say it, they do, but they do. And it's really apparent. So I don't want anybody to suffer. He's talking about ISIS. Well, that's a kind of a different thing, because we got people that are doing outright evil.
Well, it's a different ideology, obviously.
But it's outright evil, and how do you can't even have a dialogue with them, so you can't have reconciliation. You could extend forgiveness to them, but that doesn't mean you sit there and let them wipe you out, massacre you. So, responses to evil should not change. We should do something to help the innocent and protect them. But at the same time, how do you transform the evil heart of somebody that's participating in ISIS to a place where it would be healthy?
Saji, go ahead.
Go ahead.
John, I was at a class last week in Virginia, and the professor has been a consultant for the U.S. government in Iraq and Afghanistan, talking about subjects like this, violent extremism. And she talked about the lone wolf, the person that is becoming self-radicalized, and we've seen the effects of that. We saw it in England a few days ago.
Three times in 3 months.
We've seen it in France, we've seen it in Germany, we've seen it in a number of different places. And she talked about a number of factors that lend itself to this self-radicalization, to this lone wolf mentality.
They're influenced.
Yeah, but there's a need for identity, there's a need for belonging,
attention.
There's a need. They're lonely. Yeah.
There's a need for attention.
Yeah. There's a need for attention, but there's also a sense of being disempowered because they haven't had.
Well, it's a sense of power to be able to control.
Oh, exactly. Right. So that's what ISIS preaches. But these lone wolves, they need someone, to reach out to them. When they're feeling lonely. There's a lot of things that we can do. And this is what the U.S. government is learning. It's not just about counterterrorism. It's about how do we build peace? How do we increase a sense of reconciliation? We're perpetuating the cycle.
I want to get back to the focus of the Turks and the Armenians, and
Sure.
we will after the break. 436 MeTV option 11. We have an open phone line if you want to call in and chime in. But if you stop and think about all the atrocities, and we don't have time to list them all here, that have taken place throughout mankind. Okay, you could go through the Jewish Holocaust, the Armenian genocide. You had slavery in this country. You had, and many people believe that the Indians in the early days, when we took over this country, there were atrocities committed against them. So you have all these human tragedies that have taken place over the course of time. Reconciliation, my friends, 436 MeTV option 11. The Turks on one side, the Armenians on the other. Can anybody bring these people together? Back in just a moment with your phone calls, I hope. We have an open line.
It's Sully and Russ on the Big Biz Show.
It's your biz.
And maybe they'll start listening to Baldwin
Now,
McCullough.
before you make any money moves, check in with the Brain Trust.
And you are starting your week off right.
Biz TV is now on KDHF channel 4.6.
Frigidaire. It means the first electric refrigerator. The first compact electric range. Now, there's the Frigidaire Gallery Range with Symmetry double ovens. It's designed to cook multiple dishes at multiple temperatures, so you can prepare the entire meal at the same time. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
So we just got into Malatya, off maybe 1 or 2 hours of sleep. We've been through so much in the last several months. We met in Pasadena, we met in New Jersey, we met in Istanbul. We've been just crying tears of joy and healing, celebrating what God is doing amongst all our peoples. Here in Malatya, the dream is coming true. The dream of not only being able to visit where we're from ancestrally, but to be able to interact with the people who are from there. We're going to connect also with the church here to be an encouragement, to express to them what's been going on between us and our Turkish and Kurdish brothers. And we also hope to be walking the streets and running into people who will be asking, hey, who are you? What are you doing here? And we're happy to answer that question and to see the love of God spread from.
All right, what we need to do is clarify what this video is. This is part of the journey to reconciliation. This is part of the movement that you saw that was in Istanbul, right? The pastors, both Turks and Armenians, getting together, and we saw that one church scene there. That was in Istanbul. What was going on in that video? That's part of the movement, right?
Correct.
To get together and reconcile between
Yes.
the Turks and the Armenians. And you had pastors on both sides.
Yes. So that building was an Armenian Protestant church that is still active to this day, but they have several services there, and the larger of the two services is in Turkish and run by a Turkish pastor. That scene revealed the worship service and the gathering of, I don't know, a couple hundred people from the area, and all the Armenians and Turks and Kurds.
So there were Turks, Armenians, and Kurds at that worship.
Correct. And we were worshiping in 4 different languages.
Really?
Yep.
What were the 4 languages?
Well, there was
Armenian?
English, Armenian, Turkish, and Kurmanji.
Okay.
The language of the Kurds.
All right. Were you there, Saji?
Yes, I was
you
there.
You were there. And how, you're not either Turkish or Armenian. So you kind of have no axe to grind in this. So let me just brand you as a little bit of an outsider looking in, because you're of Eastern Indian descent. You were born here in this country, obviously, educated here, well educated. So how do you view this, and how did you view that worship there in that church in Istanbul, of all places?
Yeah. Well, how do I view this? As an Indian American.
You're a Christian, I want to clarify.
Yes, I am a Christian, and I think we all need bridge builders, to kind of help mediate, negotiate different topics, particularly topics like genocide, or even where we've had people do something in our lives, personally. And we sometimes need an outside party to kind of help mediate some of those kinds of things.
Has anybody ever told you, you know what, you're not a Turk and you're not an Armenian, so you know what, you can't even begin to understand what this is all about? Have you had someone tell you that?
True. I can't understand what the Armenians have gone through.
Have people on both sides tell you that?
I've had people allude to that, because I'm not an insider, right? I'm not an Armenian.
You didn't have your relatives slaughtered.
I didn't have my relatives slaughtered. Exactly.
So it's hard for you to understand.
It is hard for me to understand.
Yeah.
But because I am somewhat separated from what happened, it allows me to be a bridge builder. It allows me to come in and try to connect these groups together. And it's, and I gotta say,
and so that's a good point, because he just brought up maybe the key point of this whole thing. He's more level-headed about this whole thing than maybe you would be.
Well, that's definitely true.
No, because you're of our no offense to you, but
No, you're not
because of your Armenian
Sure.
descent is what I'm getting at.
So
am I right about that?
Well, yes. You're on threads.
He's a little more. He has more common sense. A little more. Being a little more level-headed in terms of the genocide.
Okay.
I'm talking about.
Yes.
In terms of the genocide. I'm not trying to insult anyone.
No. You brought up several really excellent points. One, what does a mediator do? I mean, you're mediating a show, and you've not experienced these things directly, but you can still come on and understand, empathize, and help other people get a better understanding of what's going on.
In my case, I know the Greeks were slaughtered there too, but I have no idea if I had relatives there.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know, but you've had relatives.
An individual like Saji, who is called, I believe, by God, has been put in this place.
Right.
Amazingly, has pulled and put this together, and has been given this sets of gifts to do this. Two, he has a heart of love that supersedes all things.
Does he have a gift for bringing people together?
Yes, absolutely.
He does.
He
How
does.
so?
Oh, just look at the evidence. You're seeing the videos. You're seeing the gatherings. You're seeing this. It's not just Saji alone. It's God working through him and hundreds of other people who have the same desire. My desire in this is I grew up hating Turks. I have the famous bumper sticker, heroin plus Turkey equals,
Did you
genocide.
grow up hating Turks?
No, I didn't.
Did you grow up hating anyone?
Well, there's always people that you dislike. There's always people who bully you in school. There's always little things like that happen. But
being of Greek descent, my ancestors came from Greece, and I didn't fully understand this Turkish thing until I went to Greece, and then I understood it a lot better. I mean, the Greeks.
Yeah.
They don't think very clearly sometimes, and they're ready to go to war with Turkey, like right now.
Yeah, Cyprus.
Yeah, Cyprus over many issues. It isn't just Cyprus.
Yeah,
it's just they just want to wipe them out.
Yeah.
And so I'm.
That's not a healthy response.
No,
it's
but
an understandable response, but it's not healthy.
I was not fully, but partially educated in what a hot topic this is over there.
So understand, you talked about the gang violence in the intro. Hate in people's heart without correction, without coming back to a proper perspective, love, caring for the best of the person, not hating them. Which road are you going to stay on? Because it's destructive to stay on the road of hating all your life, period.
John, let me tell you, we had an Armenian lady at one of our gatherings who came up to this Turkish pastor who had just apologized and had asked for forgiveness. She said, I have had a heart of ice for the last 50 to 60 years of my life.
Let me ask you a tough question here.
Yeah.
How can there be reconciliation when the Turkish government doesn't even recognize that the genocide even took place? This country doesn't. There's no apology. There's no acceptance of it. There's no admittance that, we did this. Our forefathers did it. How can you have reconciliation? Saji, start.
Well, I think what we're working at is a grassroots movement, of creating and building this group of Turks who are willing to admit,
but how
that
big
something
is this
happened.
group of Turks? How big is the group?
We've
You're
had
talking about what, a couple of dozen pastors?
no, it's grown to
How many?
A couple of hundred pastors and leaders, and
from Turkey.
In Turkey, pastors and leaders. It's not
In
just
Turkey.
in Turkey.
Are their lives being threatened?
Well, they're certainly getting some flack for this. We had one of the Turkish pastors confronted by the secret police there.
In Turkey?
In Turkey, because, hey, we know what you're doing with this Armenian stuff. That's what the secret police said to him, right?
There's a real and present danger that hovers over all this. And 10 years ago, the anniversary of Tilman and the 3 people killed in Malatya is a reminder, along with Hrant Dink, that there's certainly people don't want this to happen. We understand that. So it doesn't change the target, though. When the target is to do the right thing, to love, and to bring relations together that heal. And if you don't work in that direction, you'll never get improvement.
Yeah, and I think I mischaracterized before. I think I used the word common sense, but I think you have a more non-biased approach with this. and look at it from a different perspective than, say,
Yeah.
an Armenian and a Turk. So you're pretty much non-biased in this issue. You don't
Yeah.
have an axe to grind.
Exactly. I don't have an axe to grind, right? And
Right.
that's why I think, we all need this, right? Whether it's a huge national kind of issue or even sometimes personal issues, we need someone to help us engage, right? Maybe talk through some of our feelings
Do
around
you realize
forgiveness and bitterness.
two things about this, Saji and Jay, is the fact that this could incite more violence. This could possibly and potentially spiral out of control to a certain extent. There are going to be Armenians and Turks on both sides that are going to reject this movement.
Yes.
They're going to say, they're going to poo-poo it. You realize that?
Yeah. But it doesn't stop us from doing what's right. This is an important thing. We want to take the long road of building relationships, creating a movement where more and more people come to a place of forgiveness and understanding, right? As we come to that, we will begin to really understand what justice will look like, right?
Okay.
Because Armenians and Turks will both have a clear understanding of each other.
Got to go to break. 436 MeTV option 11. Can't believe that we've only had one phone call. Somebody out there, an Armenian, a Turk, must have an opinion about this. We have an open phone line, 436 MeTV option 11. Back in a moment.
The new Frigidaire Professional line at Ventura TV Video Appliance. Enjoy generous-sized cooktops and sauté or simmer with ease, while true convection ovens offer even baking and juicy roasting perfection. Foods stay their freshest in spacious refrigerators with convenient controls and clear filtered ice and water. Easy to clean surfaces reduce fingerprints, and the quietest of dishwashers makes cleanup a snap. The new Frigidaire Professional line at Ventura TV Video Appliance.
Tune in to Heartland for the best in true country music. Relive vintage specials, one-of-a-kind concerts, and country music's earliest videos. Heartland is the heart of country, the only place where you can find country music, country stars, and country lifestyles 24/7. Heartland, the heart of country.
Now on channel 13.2.
I'm not sure where we're going, but where we are is Malatya, which is where my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, came from in the early 1900s. And so I can't wait to see where we're going.
So we're at the church in Malatya, meeting with somebody who has a lot to say about what we're discussing and experiencing and moving toward.
This is also the location of the first Turkish martyrs. The German missionary Tulman was martyred here along with two Turkish brothers who were seeking to establish a presence of a church, like a kingdom outpost here in Malatya. So we're very excited. We're going to get to meet with Susanna, Tillman's widow.
So I prayed and said, Lord, what do you want me to say? I have no idea what to say. I don't know what to say. I was totally like empty. And then the word of Jesus came to my mind. Father, forgive them because they don't know what they've done or what they're doing. So I thought, okay, I can do that. It was like, it said to me in my mind, and I did it.
It seems that you're able to see the perpetrators in a completely new light.
I think you can't overcome a memory. It's just burned in your mind. It's like everyone, you can ask everyone what he did on the 11th of September or here on that day of murder. They know exactly what they did. Everyone knows, and that will stick in your mind. I don't think you can overcome a memory, whatever it is, good one or bad. You won't never forget good memories, so you can't forget bad memories.
All right, that video was taken in, obviously, Turkey, and the pastor in there, Pastor Greg, he's an Armenian pastor just down the street from Ventura TV. And what church is it? It's the
First Armenian Presbyterian Church.
That's exactly right. And so he went along on this movement, on this, this trek to Turkey to try to reconcile and be a part of the movement. And the young lady who was at the end of the video, you were shooting the video, you were shooting the interviews. Tell us the story about that young lady, because she lived through a tragedy of her own.
Yes.
And what was it?
Okay, so we were in the town of Malatya, which was solely almost all Armenian before the genocides. And that lady and 2 other Turkish men were pastors in Malatya, the only Christian church in a town of about 250,000 people. They were brutally murdered and killed 10 years ago as their anniversary, as a matter of fact, and that is the wife of Pastor Tilman in Malatya. So that's 8 years afterwards. We were interviewing her about her thoughts of forgiveness. She went on national TV in Turkey, I think the day after her husband was killed, and offered forgiveness on the national news that the Turks did not know what to do. How do you forgive somebody who just killed your husband brutally? But that's what she did, and that interview was about her coming to forgiveness.
This was like a day after?
Yeah, day after. You can find the interview. I'm sure they're on YouTube in Turkish.
So she conducted that interview the day after her husband was murdered.
The press approached her, and she extended her forgiveness to the killers. Yeah. Of course, the interview we just did is in the town of Malatya. So Greg and I, Pastor
Malatya is not far from Istanbul, right?
Well, it's in the middle of Turkey, so it's 600-800 miles away. I don't know the exact distance, but it's not right next to it. Malatya is where one of Greg's grandparents came from, and then next to it, about 70 miles away, is Harput. There's a region in the city of Harput, or Harput. We went there, and that's where my grandparents come from that region. Yeah.
Did you get the response from any Armenians that say no? No reconciliation. There's no way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people.
We've had lots of people say to us, hey, this can't happen, right?
Not going to happen.
We need to see the government admit, the Turkish government admit that there was wrongdoing. Mm-hmm. And so we've had a lot of people, say, hey, we don't want to be a part of this. We don't believe this can happen. Yeah. And we only want to, we can only draw the people who God wants to bring to this movement, right?
Yeah.
That's the powerful thing. God's the one that's doing this.
Okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, where would you put it in terms of accepting this movement from the Armenian side? Scale from 1 to 10, Saji.
Oh, yeah. If I'm looking at all Armenians, there's probably, it's 3 out of 10. There's a large number.
At best.
That's at
what
best.
About on the Turkish side?
Oh yeah, that's probably 2 or 3 as well, right? Like we're not talking huge numbers here, right?
Yeah, so there's an equal number on each side that are saying, I don't think so. This ain't going to happen.
John, let's take a lesson from history that every Armenian will know. No Turk will know this history. Okay, in 60, 80 years after Christ, 50 years within his death and resurrection, there were no Christians in Armenia. None. We were pagans. Thaddeus and Bartholomew, every Armenian knows this history. Thaddeus and Bartholomew came to Armenia. Both of them were killed and martyred, but brought the message of Christ, his death and resurrection, and the ministry of reconciliation to Armenia. Okay? No Armenian endorsed it. They were pagans. It took 220, 30 years until the transformation of the country occurred so that King Durtad, out of the pit of Khorvirab, admitted and confessed Christ as his Lord and Savior, and a transformation came. Think about that. 250 years before paganism to a loving of Christ. If people weren't willing to take this message of Christ, reconciling us first to God, then to man, if that never happened, we would be pagans no different than the Turks and the Azeris and all the other people that do evil.
All right, I got to ask you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense to me. I mean, that's absolutely right. But here's what I'm thinking. This is what's going through my head. This movement started in 2014. We're now in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So the movement isn't very big. I don't know how many people know about it. Maybe you don't know how many people know about it either. Is it being, announced on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, or are you trying to keep this low profile? That's question one. And question number 2 is, if both sides are saying, hey man, this ain't gonna happen, then why do it?
Well, it has
Tough
been.
question, sorry.
No, that's a very simple question for me.
It has been low profile.
Yeah.
We haven't tried to bring it a lot of media attention. When we took 20 pastors and leaders to the Genocide Memorial in Yerevan, there were TV cameras there, and it made national news.
Right. And I want to roll some videotape while we're talking about
Yeah.
that. This isn't the actual video that you were just talking about, the actual, but I want to roll the videotape of the Pope in Armenia. We're going to talk over this video.
Yeah.
The Pope himself actually went there to the memorial in Armenia. Where exactly is this? You both know where it is.
This is the Genocide Memorial on the top of a hill in Yerevan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so go ahead, Saji, continue.
Yeah, so we brought these Turkish leaders to the Genocide Memorial. They stood there hand in hand with Armenian leaders and pastors, and they prayed and asked for forgiveness for what had happened 100 years before. And this was 2 weeks before the 100-year anniversary of the genocide.
And I think one of those Turks, and one of the reasons what we didn't want to show that video is one of those Turks in there, one of those pastors or one of those leaders that actually led that movement into that memorial that you see right here, he's had his life threatened. Is that right?
No,
So I really didn't want to show his video, his face. Our show ends up on YouTube. Who knows who sees it around the world? Who knows? Who knows who can see it? So we're trying to protect him too a little bit.
Yeah.
Sure.
So these guys, you know, they went to Armenian churches all around Yerevan, and now we're talking not just a couple hundred. We're talking a couple of thousand people.
Did they talk
engaged?
Did they talk about the Pope's visit?
No, they didn't talk about the Pope's visit. The Pope had declared the Armenian genocide the first genocide of the 20th century.
All right, I do want to talk about forgiveness. Okay, I want to roll a piece of videotape. It's got sound on it. It's called Forgiveness. Do we need to forgive? Maybe not forget, but if we want salvation, if we want to have our sins forgiven by God, if you believe the Bible, if you're a Christian, and Armenians, at least most of them are Christians, do they need to forgive? Let's roll the videotape.
Kebab in Durma,
in the States,
which is wrapped. Well,
so
you'll just have to try it. Now we get to go to church. We can't wait. It's going to be a great time tonight. We're going to talk about reconciliation, and we also get to hear a testimony from what God's doing in just an amazing way in one man's life.
I read here that you are God's chosen ones.
Ben burada okuyorum, siz Tanrı'nın seçilmişsiniz.
That you are holy and dearly loved by God. And that's who you have to be in my eyes. I should have been born here.
Ben aslında burada doğması gerekti.
My grandmother is from Malatya, but her story was very sad. Her whole family was killed here in Malatya. But there was someone from Malatya, my great-grandfather's neighbor. He saved my grandmother. Thank you so much.
Çok teşekkür ederim.
I did not grow up wanting to say thank you to a Turk. I didn't even want to know a Turk. But you are God's chosen ones. How can I not forgive you?
All right, you just saw part of the video there. It's called Journey to Reconciliation. It's about 37 minutes long, and it's not been widely viewed on the internet, but it is on the internet, and you can go see it if you want. And so I'm going to have you, Jay, go ahead and explain the video that we just saw there.
Yeah, so that's Pastor Greg Hartunian and myself in the background somewhere, probably filming, giving a little sermon. That's Susan Tillman, whose husband was killed, we just talked about. And he's just giving a little message of when his grandparents, one of them fled from that area, it was a Turk that saved him. That's a common story. That a Turkish neighbor hid them, did whatever. I don't remember the specifics for his relative. And he's just giving a reflection of, I grew up hating Turks, but I want to come here and bless you and thank you for the...
And that took place in a church in Malatya.
The only Christian church fellowship in Malatya, a town of 250,000 people, was that small building there where they have a fellowship of about 70, 80 people, I believe.
Right, and Malatya located roughly in the middle of Turkey. There,
yeah,
right?
Close enough.
Yeah, in Turkey. So that's a remarkable thing all by itself.
And understand, at the 1890, that was almost 95% Armenian Christian community inhabited that town, where there were several flourishing churches and Orthodox churches, and there is none now except for this small little. Yeah.
Let's roll another piece of videotape. It's called Graveyard. Visiting the graveyard. We'll explain this after we roll the tape and take a look at it. Graveyard. This takes place in Turkey, I believe, right? Okay, go ahead and roll it.
This is the grave of Brother Tilman. It says, Yaşamak Mesih'tir, ölmek kazançtır. To live is Christ, but to die is gain.
What did we just see there? That was part of the movement, the trip to Malatya, of course.
So that's part of the footage of the trip that Baudeville, Pastor Greg and myself went on in Malatya. The opening scene was the Christian cemetery there, which of course is 99% Armenian or other Christians. And the three pastors that were killed 10 years ago are also buried there, including the husband of Susan, the one you just saw.
Yeah.
And then the other scenes are just around Malatya.
Yeah, and I want to show a piece of videotape that you're in. And you're, I believe, standing right in front of the Euphrates River.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I want to show that piece of tape. And the name of that videotape, Carrie, is Water. Let's roll it. It's got sound. We'll talk about it on the other side.
Many people I have heard see it. God show them water, living water flowing from the east of Turkey to the west, coming from the gospel. The message of reconciliation being experienced on this land, just affecting the whole region, affecting the whole world. And this is really, really clean, cold, crisp mountain water.
And as you can see, we have the beautiful Euphrates River coming from the headwaters of the mountains. And both these rivers kind of meander and parallel each other and go into Syria and Iraq. So these are important waters. Important waters, the source of life for many, many people.
Kutsa, bu halka merhamet et, bu halkı uyandır, bu halkın gözlerini aç, rüyalarında onlara konuş.
Our brother Hakan led us in prayer for this land to be a land where people worship the true God, for these waters, for wherever they flow, for the people to be believing in the name of Jesus in those lands.
Özgür kıl diye dua ediyorum sana İsa Mesih.
Again, part of the movement, part of that video that you guys took, it's called The Journey to Reconciliation. Where exactly were you at that time, Jay?
The first scene where Brother Haig is washing his face is in the hills above Malatya. It's a natural spring that they've created, a place for people to get fresh water.
Why is that so significant?
Well, water represents life.
No, but in that specific spot, the water flowing again.
Sure. I mean, it represents a lot of things. I mean, besides life, I mean, the water is common to all people. We as Armenians and Turks live side by side. Those waters provided life to both of us. Mm-hmm. Right. Later on, where you saw myself, that's the headwaters of the Euphrates. You can see the snow in the background.
Right.
Again, that water represents life to all the peoples downstream and above there, and that's what we're about, is life.
Right, and so the beginnings of life begin with water, so you wanted to go back in time and kind of reference that.
Yep, yeah.
All right,
yeah.
All right, let's roll another piece
we prayed blessings onto the Turkish people at those locations.
At the Euphrates River.
Both, the Euphrates,
both,
yeah.
And okay, all right, time for one more piece of videotape, and it's called Wine Building. The Wine Building, that's right, it's the Wine Building. Let's roll it.
We're all amazed, fascinated by this large structure that was once used for the Armenian evangelical community in the area, and people in general. It wasn't just Armenians. And now it's in the middle of the historic bazaar of the city. It's just surrounded by a parking lot. And so we're here. I came here 2 years ago. We were able to go inside. He was telling me how this year they closed it off because a lot of people would go inside and like drink and do bad things, and so it's closed off. We met the guy who manages this parking lot. He showed us around the building. We can't really get in it, but he's just telling us about how it was used for making wine in the early 20th century. But he himself says that it was some sort of monastery beforehand. We are pretty sure, because we've heard and learned, that it was a Protestant church built in the 19th century, probably the later half. People here don't know much about it, but talking to him, we also got talking about hidden Armenians in this area. He was a really helpful man. We bless people like this. We bless everyone, okay? But when we see people just reaching out to us, we see that God can move here, you know? God is here. There is love here. These people are not forgotten. They're not hopeless. And yeah, we're gonna see what else God shows us. There's like a shop over here where everyone there
His name is Ahmet.
Is Armenian. The guy's name is Ahmet, but everyone knows he's a hidden Armenian, you know?
Ama ne kadar güzel yani gelip de
How
şimdi senin
nice it is.
ailenin doğduğu yerler. İlk defa.
Where your family is from.
Absolutely. Sizlere çay falan ikram edeyim. Gelin şuraya.
He's saying, let me...
Gelin yerim ya. Gel.
Okay, hadi Fatih.
We will.
You were asking me why did I call it the wine building? They used to make wine there, but they talk about the church. That's
activity.
Yeah, well, that's okay. They were bootlegging. Big deal. My grandparents probably did that too.
I thought they did in bathtubs. I don't know.
All right.
Anyway.
All right. So to explain the scene there, if you maybe Saji can pick up too here.
Well,
You've been kind of silent here, Saji.
Well, I wasn't on the tour.
I was myself, Hakan, Badali Greg, and myself, and we were seeing. This is now in Kharpert, and that's this kind of the center of the city. Excuse me. And we believe that's no, this is Kharpert.
Okay.
Yeah, Kharpert means rock fortress, and that was a place where a lot of Armenians in Fresno came from that region.
And where is that located in
It's 70 miles further east from Malachi, approximately.
Gotcha. Go ahead.
So we were touring around, and we went to the center of the city there. They have a market off to the side there, and that is believed to be an old Armenian Protestant church. There's no label on it. We're not certain. I don't know for a fact, but that's what it's believed to be. It's abandoned. It's barely standing, but it's still there.
The significance, John, of this movement, this gathering, this trip out into these old areas of this. These are where Armenians used to live, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this new generation of Armenians are going back. They're traveling to their old homelands, and they're blessing.
Mm-hmm.
They're praying over all these things. That's a part of this reconciliation movement.
I've got about a minute and a half left,
Sure.
and I need to ask you a very important question here, Saji. And
Yes.
I want to explain it. In that video, you had Turks and Armenians on the movement, not just Armenians, but both Turks and Armenians. It all started here in Fresno, went to Pasadena, LA, New Jersey, then it went to Turkey, and then it ended up in Armenia, of course. But how do you convince a Turk who is a Muslim to say, hey, yeah, we did it. We're guilty. Forefathers did it.
Well, there are Muslims who have looked at the evidence and have said, hey, we agree, this happened.
You can convince a Muslim.
Yeah, Muslims, these are Turkish Muslims who, you can find them on YouTube, have said, hey, we admit this happened.
You guys will have to come back. I'm out of time. I don't want to get cut off. Jay,
my pleasure.
Good to see you.
Thank you,
Dr. Jacob Kushijian and Saji Umen, good to see you, and continued success on the movement, guys.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure having both of you on, and come back again.
Thank you.
Got to come back again. All right, tomorrow it's going to be Skip Essick. We'll talk about the homeless and all the crime in Fresno. Back tomorrow. Have a good day.
If you have a need to promote your business or event, please consider MeTV Fresno for your next campaign. MeTV reaches over 100,000 of your potential customers in the Fresno area every single week. Plus, you can rest assured that your commercial is running in the greatest family-friendly programs of all time. MeTV Fresno delivers a strong, loyal audience ready to buy, and your campaign will cost a fraction of what you're paying for your advertising now. Call me today to find out how affordable MeTV is at 905-1925.
Giddy up with westerns, we've got the best ones. Superhero, sci-fi, spin, grab the popcorn and stay in. Dramas, mystery,